Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha, Tvameva Vidya Dravinam, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So we are in chapter 4. Can someone tell us what verse we're on? We're, I think, in the 30s?
22.
22. And Deepa is here. Will you help us out, please?
Sure, let me just pull up the verse. Okay, I'm ready to start. Yadrichalabhasam trushto dvandvatito vimatsaraha samasiddhavasiddhocha kritvapi na nibadhyate. Content with what
Oh dear, you're
comes to
breaking
him
up.
without effort, free
Say
from
it
the
again,
pairs
you're
of
breaking up. Start again. Your voice broke up.
Hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Say the English again.
Okay. Content with what comes to him without effort, free from the pairs of opposites and envy, even-minded in success and failure, though acting, he is not bound.
Yes. So the topic under discussion is, what is action in the midst of actionlessness? What is actionlessness in the midst of action? What we're dealing with is this fifth element. Remember the 5 elements of karma yoga. Act according to your swadharma, your inherent latent proclivities, in the yajna spirit, the spirit of service, the spirit of sacrifice, but renouncing our attachment to the fruits of action. And now this 5th one, renouncing our identification with the sense of agency. So it is the body, mind, intellect that acts. The self is kutusta, it is still, immovable like a mountain. It never acts. So what is the agent? What we call the karta. It's a function in the subtle intellect. It's not bad. So I made some pasta this afternoon for lunch, and I was watching the news this afternoon, and I made my bed this morning. So that was all happening to Jim. But the thing to know is I am not the agent. That's just simply a function in the intellect. For the person in ignorance, that function is not only happening, but along with that, I attribute to the self the qualities of the non-self. Now, where does the material that causes me to act come from? The fact of my direct experience is that I make choices. And there is that long debate about free will. Do I have free will, or is it all written? And it's subtle. I certainly experience that I'm free to choose what I want. But yoga would say, well, let's not deal so much about whether it's free or not free, but let's inquire, where do those choices come from? Why do I want what I want? And why do I choose what I choose? And Gita says it is guna and karma. Guna, meaning the qualities of my mind, whether my mind is inherently tamasic, inherently rajasic, or sattvic. And then those qualities and the choices that happen are colored by the force of the past. So it's not fate. There's no God out there who has determined what you or I are going to do. But I do what I do, impelled by the force of my past experiences. How does that happen? Let's review the process of how vasana is created. So when I'm in the state of egoism, I am a person and there's a world of name and form out there, and it has the power to bring me joy or bring me misery. When I engage in the world in an egoistic way, meaning I want to get happiness from this, or I want to avoid misery from that. Sometimes it's just random. I'm moving through life and something very pleasant happens. But if I engage in what we call chintya, I think the Hindi meaning of chintya is worry, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So in Sanskrit, it's a little subtler. It means after the fact, rumination, mental rumination over an event, an experience. It can be positive or negative. So I engage in an activity and I have an experience. And then after the fact, I go, oh, that was really wonderful. I think I want to do that again. And that's almost at a pre-verbal level. Or that sucked. I'm never going to do that again. That's, again, almost at a pre-verbal level. But it leaves an impression in the mind. We call that a vasana. Then, at a later moment, that vasana sprouts. Now, its first power is the non-apprehension of my essential nature. But the next thing that happens is this low level, or sometimes extreme, feeling of being restless, discontent, irritated, dissatisfied. Now, we've all had this experience. For example, if you sit and meditate and you have one of those mornings where you, God, my mind is so noisy. This is just useless. Why am I bothering to do this? And I have so many things to do. I've got this report to do, and I've got to do this, and blah, blah, blah. You ever had that feeling in meditation? Yeah. That's called vasana pressure. That's simply the force of the past sprouting like restless, irritable, discontent, dissatisfied, squirmy, has many, many different names. So what do I do when I'm in the throes of that vasana pressure? Up I go, and then I act on that vasana. Now, if I act impelled by that vasana, and again I do it in an egoistic way, it simply strengthens and reinforces that vasana. That's how all that stuff got in there. So this is what makes me want what I want and choose what I choose. Is it really free? No. Let's just not debate it. What yoga says, this is where it came from. And in a previous verse, Krishna has said, everyone is impelled into action by their prakriti, their nature, meaning this whole syndrome of vasana. Helplessly, what can restraint do? So you may have the idea, oh, I'm not going to do this. We do it anyway. I'm never going to do that. You do it anyway. It can be changed. We change it the same way that stuff got in there. This is called tapas, moving the flow of the mind from one direction into another. So, I am not the chooser. I am not the doer. The image I like to use is you have to imagine a band in a parade. And in the front of the band, you usually see the drum major with his stick going like that. Have you ever seen that in a parade? I have news for you. Nobody's watching him and the musicians. They're all listening to the cadence. That's how they're keeping it time. He's just there for show. And then my imagination is the parade is going down the street and they're supposed to turn left. And so they all start turning left. The drum major didn't get the message, so he just keeps going. Oops! So he has to run and get in front. That's my ego. It thinks with its vanity, I am deciding, I choose. And of course we get regret, oh, I chose wrong. Or worry, I'm going to make the wrong choice tomorrow. And what Gita is saying here, you're going to do what you're going to do based on the quality of your mind. So if we do sadhana practices, we move the mind from tamas to rajas to sattva. Even that is karmic. And then we're going to do what we do. But what this fifth element of karma yoga is saying is, what we do is withdraw our mental involvement. So we practice what we call samadrishta, this equality of vision. So when pleasant experiences happen, enjoy, but let it pass through. And if an unpleasant experience happens, be aware of it, but let it pass through. I was talking with a student this morning about this experience, how the person in ignorance, we were talking about having been in a meeting, and there was a person there who was just annoying. Ego says, I'm annoyed because of what's on the outside. Then the mind says, we should get rid of that person, or I'll sit in another place, or something like that. The yogi says, aha, I have a klesha, annoyance has arisen, and now it's manifesting as my experience of that person. What can I do? Lean into it with curiosity, with compassion for yourself, and be with it. It's never out there. So we have samadrishta in the external world. Why? Because we've begun to take responsibility for our interior reactivity. And then the yogi understands, if I'm unhappy, it's not because I don't have what I want. I'm unhappy because I'm stuck wanting. So we talk about vairagya. That's Karma Vairagya Yoga is the title of the next chapter when we get to it. Detachment, dispassion. But mature vairagya, mature renunciation is always the outcome of insight. It's always about insight. So we gotta drill into our minds. I'm unhappy because I'm stuck wanting. I'm not unhappy because the world isn't behaving. Then I can do something about it. And I can practice the samadrishta. And I can deal with the material as it arises. Take responsibility for my own vasanas, my own kleshas. Then act as you will, impelled by the force of your past and the qualities of your mind. And don't worry about it. And the self, the consciousness, is never touched by any of it. Any thoughts on this before we go on? All right, next verse.
Gata sangasya muktasya jnanavasthita chetasa yagyaya charata karma samagram pravaliyate. Of one who is devoid of attachment, who is liberated, whose mind is established in knowledge, who acts for the sake of sacrifice, all his actions are dissolved.
All right, so let's parse this. bit by bit. So what Krishna is talking about is how to use action to exhaust vasana without creating new ones. In Viveka Chudamani, Shankara very clearly says, the annihilation of the vasanas here and now is considered liberation by the wise. So there's a tape recorder that's on a loop called My Mind. It's really only about half a dozen, maybe 10 ideas that I'm attached to that keep repeating. And yoga means we're going to use an eraser to demagnetize that section of the tape, erase the data. So those particular attachments don't have the power to ensnare me anymore. So here, acting for the sake of sacrifice, acting for yajna. Remember our understanding of what a deva is. A deva is the presiding principle over a field of human endeavor. So whatever it is you're doing in your life. So Deepa's been there finishing up her brother's estate. So you're doing the estate yajna. Do it as service, renouncing your attachment to the results. Shilpa just did her dance concert last week. So she's propitiating the dance data. Do it as service, letting go of the results. Staying in the now. Not concerned for the outcome or the fruit. That's for all of us in whatever our endeavors are. Now, let me give you a real live example of this. Most of us, if we look back into our childhood, we don't have memory of much of anything other than maybe age 4, maybe a little earlier, age 3. Can you guys remember anything before that? No. But you were there in the body, you were having experiences. Why don't we remember that? Because infants and toddlers are natural yogis. They have an experience and then it's gone. And then there's the next experience. Dogs are like that. Those of you who have pets, dogs don't hang on to the past by and large. Am I right? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes.
They're very much in the now. Very much in the now. So we have to regain the innocence of a childlike mind. I think this is what Jesus meant when he said, suffer little children to come unto me, for of them is the kingdom of heaven. Suffer here is an old English word, which means allow. Allow the children to come, because the kingdom of heaven is like their minds. And it isn't that the enlightened mind is an infantile mind. It means it's a present mind. It has a divine simplicity to it. And if we practice this renunciation of the sense of agency. I am not the doer. I am not the enjoyer. It's just the reaction of the mind. I am the witnessing consciousness. I am actionless. It is the equipment that does the action. What is the agent but karta? The qualities of mind and the force of the past as it interacts into the society. Understanding that my happiness is independent of the world. The mind of the person in ignorance says, I'm happy when I get what I want, unhappy when I don't. The yogi says, antithetically, I'm happy when I'm free from craving. I'm unhappy when I'm under the tyranny of craving, of controlling, of insisting. Now, if the first thing were true, I'm only happy when I get what I want, that takes a lot of work. And it's always very, very temporary.
Jim, this is Sheila. I have a question.
Please.
So then who is doing the enjoying and who is doing the suffering? And like there, we experience pleasure. So someone is
Very good question. It is the mind. When the environment is conducive, the mind's happy. When the environment is non-conducive, the mind is unhappy. So for example, when you're happy, do you not know it?
Yes, I know when I'm not happy.
And you see both.
Mm-hmm.
So you are neither. You are the one who sees both reactions of the mind.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, again, for the person in ignorance, I think happiness is my nature or unhappiness is my nature, and it's dependent on the outside. So then there's a serious business of life. But the yogi knows, first of all, prarabdha, you're going to act, meaning the equipment will act. And you'll get your allotted dose of successes and failures, joys and sorrows, based on the force of the past.
One more question.
Yes.
When you take that rock and you're kissing the rock and you're saying you're tasting your own self nature.
Yes.
Does that mean you're what is that sense of relief? It's when the mind is relieved?
It is the momentary release of the mind from its craving. The craving itself, the longing itself, is what is uncomfortable. And the more I want it, and the further away it is, the more painful it is. We had a conversation about a person we both know who's caught up in addiction, person that we love very much. We really want it to be different than it is. And it's so painful. But yoga says you can find peace. Let go. Doesn't mean we don't act in a way to be useful. There's some paradox in there. Is that making sense?
Yes, yes. It'll take time. Yeah, thanks.
It's a good question. And we can't flip these desires and aversions off like a light switch. But again, this is vairagya, being able to learn to let go of this stuff. But it comes through insight, not through some moral idea.
Jim, I have a follow-up question.
Please.
So something like an addiction. Can I think of anger also as an addiction?
Anger, the yoga's definition of anger is thwarted desire, unmet expectation.
Yeah, the reason I was asking as a follow-up to Sheila's question is because I know somebody who has a lot of anger and they cause a lot of damage and violence to those around them.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like an addiction. It has the nature of an addiction in the sense that they cannot control it. And I feel very helpless in terms of what I should do.
You probably are pretty helpless unless you're in a managerial situation.
No,
If
I'm
you were
not.
their manager, you could say, go take a anger management class. But what you have to do is, now, this is one of my big kleshas that I've had to work on because of my family of origin, where there was a lot of conflict. I am conflict averse. I'm very uncomfortable when other people are angry.
Actually, it's the same with me, almost to the dot. Yeah.
Yes. So that's my klesha, you see. So I have to work on that, okay, it's okay. I just have to let people be who they are. Now, anger can be a power trip. For example, there was someone that used to work in the office at my church, and she was a borderline personality. And she used to bully people with her anger. And it was a way for her to get what she wanted. Should everybody intimidate? Oh, we have to be very careful about so-and-so. She's going to get angry, So she, I don't know whether I would call it addiction, but her ego found that, discovered that somewhere along the line, that was a useful tool for her to get what she wanted.
So again, this sounds very similar to the situation I'm in. And it doesn't affect me anymore because I'm not in that person's purview of power anymore. But I see how damaging it is to others. And this really bothers me. I don't really know what to do about it.
There's probably not a lot you can do.
Okay.
There's probably not a lot. But I have implicit trust in your connection to God. So if you're quiet and you let go of your attachment to the outcome or the result, and you genuinely ask, I need guidance. Is there some way I can be of service in this environment? Give me some guidance. Now, sometimes what I get with that question is, none of your business, Jim. Go do the dishes. But sometimes I am intuitively led, maybe to talk to a coworker or a colleague, not necessarily even the person with the anger issues. I don't know.
Okay.
There's no recipe. There's no recipe. But if we need to trust our innate wisdom, there's innate wisdom in all of us if we're free from an investment in the outcome. That's such an important point. If you are fearless and you don't give it about it, then you can be quiet. Maybe what's going to happen is this person does their thing and you say, you're a bully and that's inappropriate. Stop it. See what they do. I don't know, but you will know in the environment. Be fearless.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I think fearlessness is not the problem. Rather, I might go on the other side and be very blunt, and that can have negative consequences as well.
I don't
But
know.
I understand. Thank you.
Sometimes we need to be blunt.
Yes, we do.
My view is don't live life from recipes. Trust your innate wisdom and let go of our attachment to the outcome. The woman of knowledge, in a sense, is out of control. She never knows what's going to come out or what she's going to do from moment to moment. She's given up being a goody-goody. And Shweta, you're not a monster. You're a divine incarnation of God. Trust that.
Thanks, Jim.
And it's not just you, everybody is. Does anyone have anything they might want to suggest or talk about this? My sense is always in those situations, I personally don't act until I've reached a place of neutrality. To make sure that I'm no longer being reactive to the situation. Then I can trust my intuition.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice.
Okay, we kind of got off on some side stuff. Would you read the English one more time for me, please, Deepa? I want to make sure I got all the pieces.
Yeah. Of one who is devoid of attachment, who is liberated, whose mind is established in knowledge, who acts for the sake of sacrifice, all his actions are dissolved.
Yes. Okay, so the import here, when I've given up attachment to the outcome and I'm established in the knowledge, aham brahmasmi, I am that witnessing consciousness, chidananda rupaham, asangaha, I'm unattached. And it is guna and karma that acts. Then the vasanas are expressed in the actions, and I don't create new ones. Gone is that compulsion to repeat the conducive environments and avoid the non-conducive ones. Next verse.
Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmyara, Brahmadno, Brahmanahutam, Brahmevatena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina.
This is one of the most famous verses in the whole Gita.
Brahman is the oblation. Brahman is the clarified butter, constituting the offerings. By Brahman is the oblation poured into the fire of Brahman. Brahman verily shall be reached by him who always sees Brahman in all actions.
Yes. Now, again, this is the metaphor, the image is the Vedic sacrifice. But we have to understand the mystic symbolism. So the fire is the mind. And we throw the various oblations into the fire. That's the feeding of the sense objects through the sense organs into the mind, which then consumes it. And that karta, that sense of agency, is the priest that's doing the sacrificing. And here what Krishna is saying is, it's all Brahman. It's all God, and it's all good. There's a mantra from the Chandogya Upanishad. It's one of my favorites. It's not considered one of the great Mahavakyas, but it's pretty Maha. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Idam. All this, which means the phenomenal world, Kalu, verily, is Brahma. So what the shloka is driving at is this whole divine Leela display is the divine play of the infinite. God is the actor in me in the end. God is the sensory experience. God is the sense objects that I experience. God is the mind that enjoys or averts. It's all Brahman. Understanding this, things start to shift. Now, the worldly example of this that we have in our modern world is going to the movies. When you go to the movies, you can see a romance and two people fall in love and then one of them dies in the end. Oh, it's so sad. Or you can go to an action flick and the things are getting blown up and the planes are zooming and zooming. Or you could go to a Stephen King film and the music is very spooky and then the knife goes splooge into the body. Oh, terror. And you come out of the theater, you've had the full range of human emotions. And you go, oh, that was such a great movie. Because even though we were emotionally engaged, at a very deep level, we know it doesn't touch. Nobody really gets blown up. So the yogi begins to view the world like a dream, like a hologram. We participate, but understanding that nothing that goes on ever touches me. So here's the practice. In your meditation seat, when your mind has gotten quiet, and you do your subject-object discrimination, I'm not the body, I'm not the prana, I'm not the feelings, I'm not the thoughts. The space between the thoughts, who sees the space and the thoughts? Witnessing consciousness. And then as you move through your day, a pleasant experience happens, check out yourself. No, pleasant experience got as far as my mind, but it does not touch or alter me. An unpleasant experience happens. Do the same thing. It did not touch me. Your ego got triggered. Maybe you got embarrassed or something. Watch the embarrassment happen. Wait a minute. Am I embarrassed or is that the mind? Oh, it's the mind. It didn't touch me. And as we get rooted in this, begin to penetrate into the deep insight that the world comes about and is like a dream. Just like every element of the dream is made up of my mind. So every element of the phenomenal world is nothing but consciousness. It's nothing but consciousness. And what's really there is Brahma. Now, what about people who are blown up in Ukraine or get cancer and die? Is their suffering, is their death real? Well, it's certainly a vivid experience. But when you have a nightmare, it certainly feels like I'm having all that suffering and anxiety and fear. But when you wake up, you see, oh, it was just a dream. I'm safe in my bed. So also for the people, even the ones we love and care for, their suffering, their tragedy is like a nightmare. But the self in them is not touched by it. They're okay. You are okay. Now, that's just comforting words in the beginning. The more we meditate, the more we make friends with, become familiar with, get identified with that witnessing consciousness, the more we begin to be open to the idea. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real, exists. Satyam. Jagat, the phenomenal world, is Mithya. Literally a lie, an illusion, fake news. Experience, perceive, certainly. When the mind is in ignorance, it certainly seems real. No blame. But it's all Brahman. It's all just the play of consciousness. Now, this word play in English has two meanings. Kids can go outside into the park and play ball, meaning some sporting activity, games, fun. Or I can go to the theater and watch a play, a dramatic presentation. The word lila in Sanskrit has the same two meanings. And the scriptures call this the divine lila. So it's like a sport. It's like a game. But it's also like a drama, meaning if I'm an actor and I'm playing a villain tonight and I'm going to kill the main actor, I'm a murderer tonight, but what do? I take off my costume and my makeup and I go home. And tomorrow night I play the romantic lead. Love. But at the end of the evening, I take off my makeup and my costume. Go home. So also, your body, mind, intellect is costume and makeup. And your product of karma are the lines you've been given by the Lord. But you are not the character in the play. It's all God. Sarvamaya, Sarvamananda. All this is Maya. All this in the end is bliss. Very famous shloka. Beautiful, beautiful poetry, and the meaning is the highest Vedanta. Any thoughts on this?
I do have a question.
Who's that?
Maria,
Hi, Maria.
hi there. So if a yogi is supposed to be impartial to pleasurable experience and not pleasurable or not pleasurable experience, does that mean that a yogi is unfeeling? And what is that?
Excellent question. Okay, where's my little stone here? This is a stone. This stone is aragya, meaning it has no feelings. You're a stupid stone. It doesn't care. You're the best stone in the world. It doesn't care. We are not to become stone-like, aragya. That is not the same. When you go to the movies, you are not without feelings, but you have a sense of detachment. Isn't that true?
So you acknowledge the feeling, but let it pass by.
Yeah. And the quality of the feeling is different. I mean, I can remember one of my favorite movies of all time. God, we're going back decades now. Beaches with Bette Midler. I love Bette Midler. And she sings Wind Beneath My Wings. And in the movie, her best friend dies of cancer. It's so sad. And I remember coming out in the lobby and everybody had tears pouring down their faces. Oh, it was so that? It was such a great movie. What do you mean? Is it sad or is it a great movie? Yes. There was an ecstasy in the pathos. That's the best I can do, Maria.
Thank you.
I don't know if that was helpful.
It was helpful.
All right. Very, very famous shloka. Many people memorize it. Who's heard this shloka before? Maybe at home or something like that. All right, next verse. We'll do one, couple more.
Devamevapare yajnam yogina paryupasate brahmagnavapare yajnam yajnevopajuyati. Some yogis perform sacrifice to devas alone, or deva yajna, while others offer sacrifice as sacrifice by the self in the fire of Brahman, also called Brahma Yajna.
So, let's get our prayer stone again. We have two ways as yogis that we experience the bliss of our self nature. First is called Deva Yajna. So, because of the force of my past, I have decided that the widget brings me joy. You may have a different kind of widget. So when desire and object of desire become one, notice I didn't say don't play with the object. Just be conscious. When desire and object of desire become one, the fool says, oh, that's a great widget. The yogi says, oh, that really stopped my mind. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Oh, your Ananda. Okay, another kind of widget. Desire and object of desire become one. Oh, that really did stop my mind too. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. I mean, this widget and that widget did the same thing to my mind. Yes. It will vary in intensity and it will vary in duration, depending on how gross or subtle the object is, how badly I wanted it, and how completely it satisfied my desire. You mean ice cream, good sex, beautiful music, and doing well at work all do the same thing to my mind? Yes. So we have to watch our mind and notice the point of pleasure. We get confused in the state of ignorance by the diverse sensory experience. Because the widgets are different. But what it does to my mind is the same. It's called happiness, joy, pleasure, peace, satisfaction. That's one way. Here, Krishna calls that Deva Yajna. Remember, the Devas are the presiding principles over a field of human endeavor. My human endeavor is how I got the widget. Then he contrasts that with Brahma Yajna. No, what does he call it? Brahma Yajna. Sacrifice to Brahman, meaning for the yogi. through my practice, when I've developed some degree of detachment, non-attachment to the world, when to some degree I've let go of my identification of a personal sense of self, I'll have these moments when the mind becomes incredibly quiet. And no object has caused that bliss. It's simply the non-mediated, the immediate experience of my own self-nature. Now, what is a meditation? A meditation is a practice I do where I have some object of meditation. It can be a mantra, it can be a breath, it can be some murti, some object that I focus on for the purpose of quieting my mind so that my inherent peace becomes available. For the yogi, the objects of the world become a meditation. Now, some of you have heard me use this example before. Swamiji loved chocolate, and he was a diabetic. He wasn't supposed to have very much of it. And so we were up at Piercy at the Krishnalaya Retreat Center. You might have even been there, Mark. I can't remember. You know, it was back in the old timey days. And we were out on the lawn, and Swamiji had kind of like this lawn chair he used to sit in and answering questions and stuff like that. And someone brought in one of these little tiny Hershey things. He stops the satsang, undoes the chocolate. And goes back to satsang. He demonstrated Deva Yajna for us. He was going to eat chocolate. He was going to do nothing else but eat chocolate. He wasn't going to do it unconsciously like you and I do. I'm watching Netflix. None of you do that, do you? But he knew and he showed us, the bliss of the chocolate is only a taste of my own self nature. He used the chocolate to stop his mind. So you see, in the end, for the yogi, the world is not a bad place or a scary place. That's not what renunciation means. Now, when he was finished with the chocolate, gone, he was back to satsang. You and I, do you have any more of that chocolate? I want to repeat that action. Us. So, Deva Yajna, Brahma Yajna. Deva Yajna, a mediated way to experience the bliss of my own self-nature. Nothing wrong with it. Now, if we don't have the Brahma Yajna, you will still be attached to the world. So if we go back to the second chapter, verse 55, the Stita Prajna Purusha section, this defines yoga here. When a person casts off all the desires of the mind, O Partha, and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then they are said to be a person of steady wisdom. So we not only have to own our own bliss with the mediated experiences of the self, but we have to cultivate that non-mediated experience. Brahma Yajna. Any thoughts on this? All right, one more.
Shrotraadinindriyanyanye samyamagnishu juyati shabdadin vishayananya indriyagnishu juyati. Some again offer hearing and other senses as sacrifice in the fires of restraint. Others offer sound and other objects of sense as sacrifice in the fires of the senses.
So here, for the next few verses, Krishna is going to teach us how to use the world itself as a meditation. So we've talked about Deva Yajna, Brahma Yajna as the two overarching principles. Now he's going to break it down. So let's take the first one. What was the first one he said, Deepa?
Offer hearing and other senses as sacrifice in the fires of restraint.
Yes. So, as I'm hearing, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, can I do nothing but hear? Can I see just the object without the superimposition of all the stories? There's a very famous Zen koan, a bell ringing in an empty sky. Ding. No one there to hear. Antithetically, we superimposed, oh, I heard that bell. That's kind of like the bell that I heard so-and-so. Oh, I remember when there was a bell like that on my meditation retreat. Oh, there was just the most obnoxious person on the meditation. Oh, it was really weird. I had such the hots for the person sitting in front of me. That's how most of us hear a bell. It was mental. So here's a practice. Can you take some time to just go for a walk? Try to keep your senses intensely introverted, not letting your energy gush out, and just simply experience the sense. Next idea.
Others offer sound and other objects of sense as sacrifice in the fires of the senses.
Same idea. Same idea. Same idea. The next one.
That's it.
Okay. So It's about being in the present. I take it back. That's the second one. The first one, I would say the restraint is learning to do uparati, sense withdrawal. So when I'm in meditation, I'm focused on my mantra or my breath, and I tune out the senses. You can do it that way to make the mind quiet, or you can totally absorb into a sense. Both ways are effective. What is the goal? A single pointed mind is as good as no mind. Bringing the mind to this state of quiescence. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. We have to end now. Mark, will you make me host, please? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.